Hi everyone and welcome once again to Ruby's Classic Cooking. And today I'm making brown bread in my trusty bread machine. Now I have to tell you a couple of things about this recipe. I came across it on the internet, and if you have a bigger bread machine that makes a 2-pound loaf, which is about 900 grams, then you can just put all the ingredients in your bread machine bucket and just tell it to make your bread, bake your bread, and take out a nice great big loaf of brown bread. But if you have a smaller one, like mine, which is a 1.5-pound loaf, or about 750 grams size loaf, what you can do is you can make this as dough. So I tried this out before, and I got 2 beautiful double loaves of brown bread, which were gorgeous. So that's why I'm going to go with it today. I made it the first time trying to pretend my bread machine was big enough to make it as a baked loaf, and my lid kind of went like this about the time it got to the bake cycle, so I was in kind of a panic mode. So anyway, this is what we're going to do. I've adapted this recipe slightly so I can now do it as a dough bread. Anyway, let's carry on with this recipe. It's a really fabulous one, and it's a really traditional Nova Scotian brown bread for sure. And thank you to Christina who put this on the internet. Thank you. So let's get started. And the first thing that goes into my bucket here is 1.5 cups of water. I just do tap water, cold water. Doesn't matter with the bread machine because it will preheat everything anyway. Alright, the next thing is 2 tablespoons of butter. Okay, now I just cut this off of a pound butter, but 2 tablespoons of butter is about a half a quarter cup. So, and don't worry metric people, because when I get this in my description file, all the metric equivalents will be in the recipe below. Now, next up after the butter is 2 teaspoons, which is 10 milliliters of salt. Plain ordinary white table salt. That's what I use. And then follows that with a 1/2 cup of molasses, which, let's see now, how much is a 1/2 cup of molasses? 125? Yeah, 125. A 1/2 cup of molasses, or 125 milliliters of molasses. I usually just clean this off because this is my handy dandy Pampered Chef. Measures liquid and semi-liquid things really, really well. You can use a regular measuring cup for this, but since I have this handy dandy gadget, I use it all the time. So that's my 1/2 cup of molasses, 1 cup of oatmeal, which would be 250 grams of oatmeal. Now those were rolled oats. I know you can also get steel cut oats, but I'm not sure how they'd work on this recipe. You'd probably want to get rolled oats if you can, if they're available in your neck of the woods. Now I'm following that with 4 cups of flour. Okay, so I'll be right back after I'm just going to measure this 4 cups of flour in here, and I'll be back when I've got it all in there. And that's 4 cups of flour in here. See? Fills up my bread machine bucket, probably more than it should. And following that by 3 teaspoons of yeast. Now, I don't bother buying bread machine yeast. I just buy your regular bread making yeast. So 1, 2, 3. And I always like to add a little extra just in case, just to make sure it rises well. So now I'm just going to put this into my bread machine, just like this. Put my bucket in here. My baking bucket in here. That's just going to go in there like that. And I'm going to choose my dough setting. And in 2 hours, my dough will be all ready to pan. So I'll just get this started. There. And in 2 hours, I'll be back. Hi everybody, I'm back again. And 2 hours have now elapsed. And my bread dough is now all ready to come out of the bread machine. And normally I would just kind of eyeball making this into 4 equal sized lumps of dough. But for tonight, for today. But because I'm doing this to show you, I'm going to weigh the entire lump of dough on my kitchen scale, and then I'm going to divide this into 4 equal sized lumps. So let's see, do a little math here. You've got 1273, so that would be 635, 36, yeah, 35 and 35, yeah. So that would be 635 for half. So I'm just going to cut this and then weigh it and see how close I am. Okay, 632 divided by 2, and that would be 315 roughly. So let's just divide this in half. This particular loaf pan is stoneware. It's by Bamford Chef, but there are other stoneware ones out there. You can also use metal or oven-safe glass with like Pyrex or Fire King. Or if you're lucky enough to have some of the old Corningware ones that have been discontinued for quite a few years, Corningware loaf pans. So whatever your loaf pans are, you just take your piece of bread, your piece of dough I should say, take your piece of dough and make it into like a ball, just like you're making a great big roll, or maybe a snowball. Now I'm going to preheat my oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. I think that's 205 Celsius, but I'll double check that. Like I said, it'll be in the description box down below when I post this recipe up. So there we go. There's that one. There, that's all panned and ready to go. Now I'm going to let this rise for an hour. The thing I like about these stoneware pans is I don't have to grease them. If you're using Pyrex or metal, you'd probably want to grease that pan to make sure that it doesn't stick when you go to take it out when it's baked. Okay, let's get the second loaf panned here. 217. Yep, good. So I'm just going to do the same thing again with the second loaf. Just form this into a ball. Just by tucking, just keep tucking the dough inside so that you get this nice ball on the outside. Just like this. And then I'm going to let these 2 balls of dough rise for an hour, and then I'll come back, preheat my oven to 400 degrees, and I'll bake them for 30 minutes. And then I'll have 2 nice size loaves of bread. Double loaves of bread, yum. Just like your mother, your grandmother, or whoever used to make bread all the time. Traditional looking loaves of bread. There you go. See what they look like now before they've risen? They just kind of really don't fill the pan up, do they? But when I come back in an hour, they should be filling this pan to overflowing. I'll see you again in an hour. And here we are back again an hour later, and here's the bread all risen up. And just as soon as my oven comes up to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 205 Celsius I believe, but I'll check that, these are going to go in the oven for 25 to 30 minutes, and I'll have 2 loaves of bread to show you in a half an hour. All right, here we are 30 minutes later, or 27 actually, and I have 2 double loaves of fresh baked bread. Look at that, isn't that gorgeous? Let's turn these out of the pans, and there. Beautiful bread. And wait until I cut into that and put some butter on it and some cheese with it. Yum. Brown bread and cheese. Yum. Nothing like it. Brown bread is also fabulous with homemade beans and molasses. Yum. Molasses. Now, there's a historical thing about Nova Scotia, about the Maritime provinces actually, and that's Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island. If you want to call it the Atlantic provinces, then you just add in Newfoundland to those 3. And all 4 provinces actually have a real history of sailing ships traveling to the Caribbean and dealing in rum, rum and molasses. So molasses plays a real part in the history of our food. Baked beans with molasses is a real thing here in Nova Scotia, and brown bread goes with that wonderfully. And you can put butter on it and put molasses on your butter. Finest way to have a piece of bread, or brown bread and cheese, which is equally yummy. I hope you enjoyed my video today, and I hope you're going to like, subscribe, give this recipe a try in your bread machine at home. Give me a comment and let me know if you try up this recipe and it turns out for you. Well, I hope you'll join me next time on Ruby's Classic Cooking. Bye for now. Oops. Oh, video.